A cruise as a president who, when the home of football is being built by a president of an organization within the football fraternity, that I am funneling money, US dollars, through a hardware to get kicked back. I mean, how do you deal with something like that goes in the public space? Yeah.
Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. An expose on the alleged shady dealings of former president of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, TTFA, David John Williams, produced and aired by a team from CNC3 led by Guardian Media Limited's investigative editor Mark Bassant, has been sending shockwaves through the sporting fraternity in and outside TNT. The documentary, dubbed TTFA's Secret Panama Trail, uncovers what Bassant paints as a web of deceit engineered, designed by David John Williams to use FIFA funds earmarked for the controversial Home of Football project to boost his bank balance in an account at an offshore bank in Panama. Bassant not only gives the viewers food for thought, but also treats them to the almost funny, if not so serious sight of him, papers in hand and obeying COVID-19 protocols, confronting John Williams on the links as the former TTFA boss tries to enjoy a round of golf.
But evidence uncovered during our investigation give credence to the main contractor on this project being no other than David John Williams himself. It means that John Williams oversees the shipments directly and did business with a Panamanian company. We also discovered that he made trips to Panama that was unknown to any of his TTFA fellow executives. A financial paper trail obtained by Guardian Media from FIFA insiders revealed that David John Williams submitted invoices to FIFA from a Panamanian company called Ecotech sometime in February 2018. It was information he withheld from fellow TTFA executives and only made it available to the same FIFA officials who had granted John Williams permission months earlier to proceed with buying this structural material. The question then can be legitimately asked: why didn't John Williams tell the TTFA board about the Panama company? We caught up with him while he played golf earlier this week to ask this and other questions.
Bassant elicits a reaction from John Williams when he mentions the bank account in Panama.
Why did you use the Republic Bank and Royal Bank accounts to pay Ecotech? Whose accounts are those? Because I know that TTFA has FCB accounts. Why wasn't the executives told about that?
I don't know about no Royal Bank account, Mr. Bassant. If you say that you use Royal Bank, fine.
Well, I have invoices from Jose Alvarado that speaks to monies being sent to his account from Royal Bank and Republic Bank invoices for the material you ordered from Panama. You going to tell us about that? Pretty nice shot there, Mr. Williams.
The award-winning journalist then asked John Williams about the reason for leaving construction material destined for the Home of Football project languishing on the docks and attracting huge demurrage and other fees.
Did you tell the shipping agents you did not have the US at the time to clear the 40 containers? It was just over 50,000 US. That's a lot of money for demurrage to accumulate. Did you have money put aside for this as part of the Home of Football project? Any comments, sir? Any comment to that, Mr. Williams?
Well, we have reached out to John Williams for comment, but have been unsuccessful in getting hold of him. However, a source close to him says the former TTFA boss will have, quote, a lot to say next week, end quote. Joining us to talk about these bombshell developments is the leader of the team which put this documentary together, Mark Bassant. Mark, welcome to the SportsMax Zone, sir. Good to have you.
Pleasure to be here once again.
Good, good, good. How long did you and your team work on this? So how long did it take you? When did you start? When did you finish?
If talking about the production side of things and putting together the documentary, we did it within a week and a half. And I have to give kudos to my team of Curvis or Joshua Simongal, the producer, as well as Shane Leakett, who was also instrumental in the graphics that they put together for this. And of course, it goes without saying, my managing editor, who I had a complete support, Rosemary Sant. And the information started to trickle down way back at the end of 2018. And then, of course, you have to do due diligence. When you get information, you knock on doors, you make calls, you try to visit people, some of which were at first, very, disheartening. Nobody wanted to talk to you. Into 2019, you continue to hit the brick walls, and coming down to late 2019, things started to open up into so to speak. I got a breadcrumb trail. And you see there are documents, signatures, and as I said, over that period, things intensified, information, and then I had to ask other people to assist me in gathering further information, outside and inside of Trinidad and Tobago in the region, even talking to a couple of people in North America and elsewhere, which would have in some way helped to solidify the information that we obtained. And then, of course, we had to secure the assistance of forensic investigators to also help us tie up some of the loose ends as we had discovered.
For people who have yet to watch it, and I don't know why there's anybody in this Caribbean who would not have watched it yet, it's on CNC3's Facebook page and through the website available. Please go and watch it. It's 40-odd minutes of pure gold. For those who haven't seen it yet, Mark, synthesize what you have found in your investigations.
Well, let me just say that I've sat for the last year and a half and looked at the narrative being played out across the world, reference the TTFA as well as FIFA. And it seems that there has been just one narrative being thrown out there into the public for, of course, with nobody asking questions or trying to find the other side or the other narrative that is out there. And I think if you want to get a good sense of, that other side. So if you were looking to the left all this time, you now have to go to look to the right.
Yes.
Definitely, it's head turning, right? And we asked the questions as we saw it. It's black and white. Some of the documents, it's there. The signatures are there of the individual. So we just asked the questions based on what we had found. And I think it's no open secret, having spoken to a couple of other journalists and so on. It was like an open secret according to the Lazana Library who spoke with me at length last night and today, that there was no open secret that they felt that he was the main contractor, but there was no actual proof. But if you have somebody who is reaching out to a company abroad, and then you are only receiving all the correspondences for the invoices, and you're conducting all the business transactions, and then I was able to painstakingly over a period of time obtain his flight information for 2018 and 2019. So I knew everywhere he went and how much time he spent, and certainly in a lot of these places it was not more than 3 days, if so much, sometimes 2 days. So I knew of critical travel he did to Panama in January 2018, as well as in December 2018. And we also understand there was also a trip back in 2017. So it was painstaking work to try and get all this information, get the personal information, passport number, date of birth, etc. Full name. All those things were really pretty important as we came down to the nitty-gritty of getting the assistance of forensic investigators and helping us to uncover and unravel some of what has been, for quite some time, journalists have not been able to find. And I think, when we continuously feed ourselves one narrative, it becomes sometimes the convenient truth. And I think this and any other story, there's always another side to a story. You must see it. Somebody cannot operate at such impunity and not be questioned.
Based on the piece, Mark, so help me if I'm oversimplifying it, but of course, for communication purposes, we have to put it as simple as possible. And again, this is for the benefit of those who haven't watched it yet. Based on what I saw, you painted a picture of the Home of Football project being conceptualized, being devised groundbroken work started, David John Williams as TTFA president and as a contractor in his other life, that monies from FIFA that were to be used to develop the home of football somehow didn't go into the development of home of football, somehow didn't go into the development of TNT football, somehow didn't go into the payment of salaries for those contracted to work to develop Trinidad and Tobago's football, but somehow ended up in an account in Panama that has David John Williams' name in it. Is that, at its simplest, what your investigation found?
I would say not exactly, because I'm not assuming that that money is there, but it's drawing the narratives and connecting the dots. So you have in 2017 the Home of Football project, the first FIFA Forward program money is actually given by FIFA to start that project, and then at that same time every association is given $1.2 million per year. You get 700,000 in January and the other 500,000 in July. So we're just looking holistically at that. In 2017, there was $3.2 million, $2 million of that to the Home of Football. The other 1.2 was supposed to be to pay coaches, technical staff, travel for the national team. Why then in 2017, these coaches, these players, and other people on the national team were having so much difficulty getting funds? And then you have the issue of a CONCACAF loan taken out in 2017 of $600,000 that to this day has not been paid back, and which coincidentally he used to pay some of these debts partially of coaches being owed money, technical staff, other little businesses that was done by the TTFA with other people. But in retrospect, I mean, for just taking, for instance, the wrongful dismissal of Stephen Hart in 2016, and he's suing the TTFA for $5 million, which is about $714,000. And you have from that CONCACAF loan of $600,000, which is less than what he was owed to Stephen Hart, he's paid $70,000. So he's picking out who he has. And 3 years later, in 2019, the chief financial officer, Lesande, sends a letter to the then new TTFA board saying, hey, this money is outstanding. We had an agreement that it's supposed to be paid back in an allotted time. That has passed, and interest has accrued. And now you are owing us $662,000 as of December 2019 from a loan that was taken way back in 2017. Trying to understand then, January you get this money, this disbursement for the Forward project, and then 4 months later, according to forensic investigators, and I want to be careful, discovered a bank account set up, allegedly, they have reason to believe, in his name, right? And we did ask him, if you have a bank account, who's on, is that your money?
Yes.
I'm really asking. He's a businessman.
Yes.
And it's just convenient. But there's also those other things that they found, that the monies came from allegedly from 2 shell companies that came into the account based on the payment orders they saw for April 1st.
Yes.
And August 15th, 2017.
Yes.
But $79,000 and $249,000 respectively in 2017.
Yes. So I want to clarify one thing before I pass it on to my colleagues. You made a point about the material for the Home of Football project sitting in containers at the docks and racking up demurrage charges. I don't know if you did the math to see if the containers had been cleared in a reasonable time relative to when they were actually cleared, how much money, US dollars, would have been saved in demurrage and other charges by the TTFA?
Right. So, I spoke extensively with people in the shipping arena, people who would have dealt directly with these containers, with custom officers who would have had some insight into what went down. And obviously, when containers come and you leave it over a period of time, days pass, there's a rental fee. So if you don't pay, the rental fee starts to accrue. So if you get some of the containers that are in March or April, and then you have May, down into May, April, May, and then, you've had these containers there sitting for a couple of weeks, but then you said, hey, this is part of the monies that were given for the Home of Football, and this will be part of the cost that has to be covered. But then the agents and other people are saying, it's been sitting here for weeks. Nobody's telling us anything. He's telling us he doesn't have the money at this point in time. The US starts to hold on, right? So they had to wait. And of course, as time passes, you're occupying space on the port. The port is going to charge you for that. And then after a period of time, only after a long period, a couple of weeks, then as the project started to intensify, because it started in the first quarter of 2018, he had to find the money to then, to clear these containers. And I don't know why there was a kickback to start with in clearing these containers at that specific time.
Mark, since the normalization has taken over, have you been in contact with Robert Haddad and company? And if so, did you find out anything as to why they didn't reveal what they saw? I'm sure when they got into office, they would have seen documents, they would have known what's taking place.
About 5 months ago, I had a discussion with the FIFA Normalization Committee Chairman, Mr. Haddad. I had initially done a print story about the home of football and the local creditors that were being owed money to this day, of course. So we had a brief conversation. It was ongoing while I was doing this investigation. So, other things popped up on the side. So, and he did promise to give me a tour of the home of football. And then, I never asked, but I was told that there was a meeting sometime last week with the Minister of Sport. And he did say that as far as he knew, and according to Shaka Hislop in the documentary, he didn't see any wrongdoing or any kind of irregularities under the John Williams administration. But I mean, if the TTFA executives who were sitting on that board are saying, hey, we're not seeing anything, you're supposed to consult with us before you do certain things, then clearly something must be amiss.
Mark, you said that the actual production of this documentary, which was 47 minutes long, took about a week and a half, you said, but you suggested that you had started gathering information from as long as a year and a half ago, which means that your investigations would have started while DJW was the president. The election, of course, was held November 9, 2019, and the official launch of the Home of Football, which had in attendance Gianni Infantino, the FIFA boss, happened during this period of your investigations. Can you tell us when you attended the ceremony? Did you, by the way, the Home of Football opening?
I actually didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. Well, when that ceremony happened, you would have at that point have gathered a lot of the information that you have now put in the documentary. What was your take on what was happening then, which was a couple of days, I think, before the election? And did you think David John Williams would have won the election for TTFA president?
Okay, so firstly, good question, Lance. Let me just say that when gathering information is one thing, and gathering and knowing something, but it's what you can prove. So definitely, I would have had information based on what I was being told by various parties and sources over the last year and a half. Obtaining the hardcore documentation was challenging for a number of months, right? And it started to more take shape after the election, the elections of 2019. But I had one or two things, but I didn't have everything that some of the documents that I had to make a correlation with certain things until as time went on in January and February and so on, things started to come down, or even just after in November. So definitely, I'm not going to make a supposition of if I thought he would have won, or if I didn't think if I did think he would win. I'm not in a position. I did follow along, and I knew it would have been quite close. And I think, there would have been certain factors, maybe that's not directly related to what was happening at TTFA, might have also contributed to his loss. I obviously don't want to speculate about that, but definitely. So a lot of the documents that people were kind of like, trying not to share with people, and then people, I had to convince people, and telling me what the document contains, it's not enough for me. I have to safeguard myself. I need to see the documents, and especially we know there's line of sight of documents, and I might have seen one or two of them, but they were not willing to part with some of these documents at that given time earlier last year.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. Convincing people, having meetings, talking to people over a period of time, going to people, as I say, pounding the pavements and going to them, and asking, you literally beseeching at times. And it's like, well, I can tell you this now, but let me think about this. Give me a couple of weeks and call me back. And that's the game I had to play for quite some time.
Yeah.
As I formulated certain things in my mind and how the narrative would play.
Yes.
Still the issue of solid black and white documentation.
Yes.
And as any good investigative journalist will do, you need that in hand.
Yes.
When going to write a piece.
Yes.
Brought a piece of this nature.
Yeah. Hold it right there, Mark. We're going to take a quick break and come right back. Speaking with investigative editor at Guardian Media Limited, Mark Bassant, and we're looking at that piece on the Panama Trail, TTFA, the Home of Football Project, and what Mark found regarding the conduct of the former president of the TTFA, David John Williams. Expose on the TTFA while David John Williams was in charge, that Home of Football Project and the monies earmarked by FIFA for development of same. The Home of Football Project, highly controversial, and at the same time there were salaries owing to people working in key posts within Trinidad and Tobago's football, even as money was coming in to pay them, and that caused investigative journalist Mark Bassant and his team at CNC3 Guardian Media Limited to do an expose, which they've put into a documentary, which I recommend to you strongly. It is must-see television. It leaves you scratching your head, asking yourself if these things can be real. As I noted at the top of the broadcast, we have reached out to David John Williams, unsuccessful in getting through to him, but someone close to him has said to us that he will be saying a lot next week. And I pressed and pressed and pressed, and I was told by this source, this confidant, that David John Williams denies the allegations and the inferences being made in the documentary, but he's keeping his powder dry until he can speak and speak definitively on these things next week. We're speaking with the man behind the piece, the lead of the team, Mark Bassant. Mark, I want to ask you this now. You made several links in the piece about, well, you made several references to FIFA, football's world governing body, and officials that FIFA has appointed to handle business related to Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to ask you then, from what you found, what was the role of FIFA or the involvement of FIFA? Slightly different terminologies. What was FIFA's involvement or role in all of what you found?
Well, there are certainly questions that needs to be clearly answered, and I mean clearly answered on behalf of FIFA. And one of the things that, if you look at the end in the part of the documentary, we have a letter where the Pharaoh Osengo Umba had written to David John Williams in 2019 indicating, hey, we are pleased to let you know this is your entitlement for FIFA Forward program for 2019 to 2022, right? That's it. Every 4 years, that $2 million tranche for the FIFA Forward development. Coincidentally, it seems that he would have gotten 2 tranches in his 4-year tenure as the president, or four and a half years, during an election year. So fast forward to 2020. The former United TTFA president, William Wallace, writes to FIFA prior to the normalization committee coming in February, asking, hey, what's happening with the FIFA Forward program money for the years 2019 to 2022? The TTFA would like to know. So a couple of days later, Pharaoh Osengo Umba responded saying, hey, this is what's happening. A FIFA team with CONCACAF is really looking at coming in here and doing an audit. He didn't explicitly answer the question about the FIFA Forward money. And then said, however, we will grant you the competition and tournament money. And of course, we know that was history because within 2 to 3 weeks after the normalization committee came in, so they didn't even get that money. So here you have a case where the new president is asking about the FIFA Forward money for the next 4 years for any projects that they might have in the pipeline. And here we have a case where he never even told him, the FIFA representative, Mr. Osengo, that was already disbursed the year before under the former president, right? And there are also a lot of questions that have been raised in the public for over the last year to year and a half. A number of articles being written by mainstream journalists, The Guardian, The Express, Newsday, as well as Mr. Liebert, who has his own Wired 868 website. And there is a premise or the supposition that there is some complicity in some way for two reasons. One is that there is this thing that they allowed Mr. John Williams to do what he needed to do and give him the permission to buy the structural material, but yet it remained was the main contractor. But if you look at the timelines, what happened was that he had made this recommendation to them way back in July of 2017, right? And they approved it. However, the entire TTFA executive never knew about this permission being granted until a year later. Now, within that year, a lot was happening. He was organizing with the Ecotech company. He made a trip to Panama in early 2018, and so on and so forth. So then there was that. Then there was a rather curious comment made by a former TTFA executive, Mr. Selby Brown, prior to the election, to a United Kingdom journalist by the name of Paul Nicholson, who writes for Inside Football.
Yeah.
And he made a very interesting comment, something that would whet anybody's curiosity or have you left in a little bit of a ponderous state. And he said, if John Williams loses the next election, the FIFA Normalization Committee is going to come to Trinidad. He hinted that.
Yeah. But
in his social media.
Yeah, but let me ask you, Mark. But let me ask you. So based on what you found, is there enough for you to ask a pointed question in this form? Well, to answer this question, was FIFA complicit in what happened, or did FIFA look the other way?
I think I honestly have to believe that there was some form of complicity in some way. And there was a couple things have just transpired over the last couple of hours. I got a couple of calls, and I can assure you, I'm not done. I'm not done. I can give you all that guarantee. I'm not done.
Yeah.
They're coming down. People are starting to open up because they have seen for themselves. And there are people now that before were not willing to speak,
yes,
were not to share information, that are sending information, you know. And I'm going to keep a lot of these things just like other people close to their chest at this point in time until things materialize.
Understood.
As I say, you don't want to put the horse before the cart.
Yeah, you want to keep your powder dry. In terms of the documents that you have, and you have a lot of them, and so correct me if I'm wrong, you have several documents that purport to have been signed by David John Williams. In other words, you have documents which were signed for all intents and purposes by David John Williams. Did your forensic collaborators forensically confirm that those documents were actually signed by David John Williams after a process of matching those signatures against other signatures he would have signed, which would have been in the public domain or would have been on the record of the TTFA?
Well, that insinuation, just because, you know, whistleblowers that work within FIFA, that work within CONCACAF, they have access to these documents.
Yes.
I am 99.9%, 100% even sure that those are that those documents are authentic and it is his signature. And I walked the length and breadth of a golf course and spent the time showing him the document, asking him if this is his signature.
Yes.
So I've said, that's not my signature.
Yes.
I never signed off on a document.
Yes.
So I give him a fair chance to give us a clear explanation about this document, about this loan.
Tell me about that process, Mark, of choosing when and where, because as you saw, we all know very well, I'm picturing Andrew Jennings and Jack Warner, but the difficulty that Andrew had was that Jack Warner was going into a vehicle so he could slip him. Oftentimes, journalists tackle people like these and they can go into a building or they have their minders around who can shield them. But you caught him at a moment so perfect, if it were any more perfect, it would have been spoiled. How did you manage to do that?
good investigative journalists, always has good sources. And I encourage every investigative journalist out there in the Caribbean, and I know we don't have a lot, and we need more of you guys, we really do. But let me tell you, I had inside sources. They told me when he leaves his home, what times to go out, and so on. So what I did is this. I went by myself for many days, and I monitored his movements. I looked at his patterns, and those are the boring things that you have to do before you enable yourself to say, hey, okay, this is an established routine. And so it was so perfect that one of the sources told me he's going to walk out his house. Now, incidentally, the golf course is opposite his house. And when he walks out the house, he's going to walk onto the golf course. He's going to stop. He's going to look around, and he's going to walk to his right to go to the first hole. Now, overlooking the first hole is a car park where there are a number of vehicles parked. So when you park there, you walk out and you go and you play golf and you disappear down into the course. So I would have at times go there and park. So I would have observed around the time that they told me that he comes out. So I did some reconnaissance, and that's a very difficult thing to do, because when you know somebody's going to try to be elusive, they're going to try to evade you. Because I remember I had called him 5 months ago, and I was still digging, but I got a little side story and I did it. And he says, yeah, what? I don't have any comments on the phone, right? I'm not commenting anything about football. You can put that. And there is this person, and that proceeds to send me a number of messages, which I still have, for 45 minutes on WhatsApp. So he had a lot to say, but off the record.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything to say on the record.
Yeah.
It's really persistence, and I want to encourage any investigative journalists. This is not a job for the faint-hearted, but definitely it's persistence, making sure you get your subject matter, because you have to give yourself and your viewers every opportunity to show that you have been fair.
Yes.
In asking and giving that person their time.
Yes.
To the allegations.
On that point, Mark, the final question I want to ask you, we only have a minute left. On that point, have you sent any request for a response to FIFA? That's one part of the question. Who at FIFA have you sent it to, and when did you dispatch that piece of correspondence?
Great question. So there was a particular question I needed to find out from Veron Osango Umba. Because of the sensitivity and the confidentiality of this piece, literally nobody knew at my news organization, barring my managing editor, that this piece was being worked on extensively for the last 6 months. When I mean, putting the finishing touches and getting documents and so on. I reached out to Veron Osanga Umba earlier in this week, sent him an email. It was actually just a question I wanted to find out about that email. And if he had sent it, why he didn't notify Mr. Wallace that there was a tranche that was actually given in a letter that he dispersed or dispatched last January. But I didn't get a response from him.
Hear you on that. Nothing for CONCACAF? Nothing for CONCACAF to answer to from this piece?
I don't know. I mean, there are things I can tell you that I know, but I can't prove. And I told the people if I get the information then. So it's still a work in progress. But I mean, CONCACAF did what they had to do. And of course, one of the things that CONCACAF, when the loan was dispersed, CONCACAF insisted that they pay out the monies to the particular people. So they got the bank accounts of these people and dispersed the funds to these people. So there was no actual physical handout of the money to the TTFA in any way, in a check or into their account. But they said, hey, we will take responsibility. You've been granted the loan. We'll take your responsibility to disperse the funds to these people that are in need of the money, that you have to pay some form of payment to.
Hear you on that. Mark, I want to congratulate you and the team for a job well done. We look forward to the additional installments. We hope that at the end of it, as Mariah said at the top of the show, that TNT's football can benefit from the outcome of this investigation and the subsequent things that will happen germane to this investigation. And as I said to David John Williams says, through a source that he'll have a lot to say next week. We look forward to that as well, giving him space to respond to the questions raised by your investigative piece. But great work as usual, and I want to thank you for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much, and you all go have a great evening, and I miss Jamaica.
I can tell you're wearing the shirt. Thank you very much, not a problem. Good. Mark Bassant there, Garden Media Limited, investigative editor. This is a tremendous piece of work, Lance. You've been around for a very, very long time, and I know you've been one of them who've lamented the fact that there aren't enough investigative pieces being done. And what is true is that a lot of the media houses, they don't have the staff complement to allow one reporter or a team of reporters to devote themselves to a project in the way that Garden Media Limited CNC3 was able to allow Mark and his team space to work. And notwithstanding that, this is still a great piece of work amid some challenges, and we wait to see what comes of it.
Yeah, I'm siding with you, George, that this is a must-watch piece. It, as I said, is 47 minutes long. I think it was divided into about 7 parts, and a significant piece of work there documented by CNC3 and Mark Bassant. The fact that this documentary, George and Mariah, was aired at the same time that Jovin Jones, one of the most established international players for Trinidad and Tobago, was scoring a double and assisting twice for the Seattle Sounders in a 7-1 victory over the San Jose Earthquakes in an MLS match, is sort of a stark representation, George and Mariah, that while the footballers are there trying to lift Trinidad up and put them on the map, the administrators, the front office, those out of office even, are dragging the sport down for the country.
Definitely pulling the country down. I also want to commend Mark Bassant, a very close friend of mine from Trinidad and Tobago. Mark, despite the challenging COVID-19 times, Mark said, he had to work around what different routes to be able to get the information. I hope that, his work doesn't go in vain, and that definitely Trinidad and Tobago's football survives and something good comes out of this.
Well, as we break, I want to tell you that if and when David John Williams speaks next week, fans of the SportsMax Zone won't be left out, because we'll be hearing from him. I can assure you of that.
For sure.
So watch that documentary, write down the questions you have, put your own thoughts together, and wait for more to piece everything together, and then see how TNT can lift itself from beneath the morass. Break time.